Welcome back, everyone. As has become our custom, we're going to use the first few minutes of this session to remind ourselves where we've been and where we're going. On Tuesday, we focused on the principles of Summit's math instruction and the role that the 5 practices play in bringing those principles to life. On Wednesday, we rehearsed using the 5 practices and briefly discussed the facilitation rhythm launch work wrap and dug into the purpose and design of instructional routines. Yesterday, we rehearsed instructional routines and made plans for math orientation to establish the mindsets and culture to set students up for success. In this session, we're taking a 60-minute break from pedagogy to expand on important curricular pieces touched upon during the pre-work that you need to be very familiar with. I mentioned back on Tuesday that almost all our time will be spent learning about practicing skills. I said almost because I knew that in this particular hour, we're focusing less on skills and much more on knowledge about how your curriculum is structured. Nevertheless, this knowledge is still strongly related to our key shifts visual. By understanding the various curricular components as a math unit, you will then understand what teacher actions to take with regard to each component. These actions are still in support of the principles we value, and of course these principles and these curricular components are in service of the key shifts in math education: greater focus, coherence, and rigor. You first learned about the curricular components through Module F of your pre-work, previewing the math course curriculum. To refresh your memory, we're going to revisit an important visual that the module to zoom in on these specific components: exercise sets, focus areas, and portfolio problems. To be clear, pretty much all of our time together up to this point has been focused on concept lessons. Think of a concept lesson as your regular daily math class. The 5 practices and instructional routines are important teacher actions during concept lessons. So now we are focusing on exercise sets, focus areas, and portfolio problems. After we discuss those, you'll have a brief discussion about the special type of activity included in your curriculum, Mathalicious activities. While revisiting this visual, we're going to work with an elbow partner to do 2 things. Find an example of each component in your curriculum: an exercise set, a focus area, and a portfolio problem, and answer this question: why is each component placed where it is in the visual? This question implies that some detailed thought went into the design of this visual. So I'm asking you to think more about that. Why are these components located where they are on the visual? Since I'll be projecting the main visual up here while you work, please take a moment to jot down in your journal the components you're examining: exercise sets, focus areas, and portfolio problems. So you know, you'll also have a copy of the visual in your Journey journal. After 5 minutes, I'll bring us all back together to discuss our responses to this question, which should also set us up for this session's main activity.
Excuse me?
So how does the visual reflect Summit's belief in building procedural fluency from a foundation of conceptual understanding? Yes, each concept lesson includes an exercise set designed to support students in building their procedural fluency. Since we believe that students should be building their procedural fluency from a foundation of conceptual understanding, we need to provide them with appropriately timed opportunities to do so after each concepts lesson. Focus areas are an additional opportunity for practice with procedural skills. They're included over here in the visual because they typically are a separate, often independent experience outside of class. Portfolio problems are puzzling, complex, and often application-based questions that take concepts students have learned deeper. Students work on them after a few related concept lessons so that students are engaging with portfolio problems, having been introduced to the unit's concept. Thank you for those excellent responses. I can hear that you're beginning to internalize these ideas. Please take a moment to read these characteristics of exercise sets to yourself. Now please turn to an elbow partner to discuss this last characteristic. How do you think exercise sets provide an excellent preparation for success with focus areas? We'll hear from one of you in about 60 seconds. If we believe that students should be building their procedural fluency from a foundation of conceptual understanding, we need to provide them with appropriately timed opportunities to do so. This is why the visual includes exercise sets immediately below, after concept lessons. Within math courses, for even more procedural practice, each unit is aligned to one power focus area and 0 to 2 additional focus areas. While the resources within a focus area provide helpful refreshers for students, the units themselves already provide sufficient opportunity to gain the knowledge necessary for students to pass each focus area. Again, you can think of exercise sets as an excellent preparation for success with focus areas. Thus, many students will benefit from completing many of a unit's exercise sets prior to engaging with that unit's focus area. To be sure, some students will choose to move quickly through the focus areas ahead of the pace of the units. That's fine. It's just that we want to be clear that that is not the expectation. More meaningful learning and practice will occur when students access the focus areas after having spent some time learning from the associated unit. This is why you see focus areas included where they are in the visual, as a separate, often independent experience outside of class that occurs later during the unit after students have been exposed to important ideas within concept lessons. Now take a moment and read the characteristics of portfolio problems to yourself. Please turn to an elbow partner and discuss one aspect of portfolio problems that strongly resonates with you and why. We'll hear from a couple of you in about 90 seconds. Portfolio time most logically occurs in a structured classroom environment after a few related concept lessons so that students are engaging with portfolio problems having already been introduced to the unit's concept. Lastly, it's important for us to touch upon one additional type activity included in your curriculum, Mathalicious activities. Mathalicious is a curriculum authoring organization that writes lessons about authentic real-world topics for middle school and high school students. They are experts in designing lessons that ask students to use math as a telescope for examining an important issue in society. We believe including these lessons in each course is an incredibly important part of supporting all students in becoming thoughtful, contributing members of society. We will provide more guidance during the pre-launch phase in upcoming convenings regarding the most effective ways to facilitate these Mathalicious lessons. You can always learn more about these activities on your own at mathalicious.com. Feel free to peruse some of them, their free activities, at your leisure. At this point, you're going to have an extended opportunity to collaborate with your peers to synthesize and connect the many ideas you've learned this week as you can. To do so in a structured, organized way, you'll be creating what's known as a concept map, similar to the one you see here. A concept map is essentially a graphic organizer used to help represent and connect knowledge of a concept. Concept maps typically begin with a main idea or concept, and gradually branch out to show that the concept is broken down into smaller, often interconnected topics. In groups of 4 to 5, you'll be designing concept maps on these large pieces of poster paper for the next 15 minutes. After those 15 minutes, you'll then have an opportunity for a gallery walk, during which you'll be able to review the concept maps created by other groups. To be clear, this activity is an intentional opportunity for you and your peers to continue to solidify your understanding of the curricular components and instructional principles of a Summit Learning Math unit are all connected. This is a task focused on the big picture of Summit Learning Math, which we have purposely saved for the last day of summer training and designed as a group-worthy task. Beyond the structure of a concept map, I'm going to strongly recommend a handful of terms to include in your concept map as a way to get your group going. The central idea of your map should be Summit Learning Math. Let's take a look at additional terms you could include now. This list is by no means exhaustive, so your group should feel free to include terms and phrases in the map that go beyond what you see here. I just wanted to make sure you had a list to help you get started. I also want to share that there's no right answer here. One advantage of a concept map is that it gives groups opportunity to represent your current understanding of how all the pieces fit together. I'll be monitoring the room and asking for clarifying or probing questions as you work. When I say concept map, you're going to form groups of 4 to 5. Head to this area of the room to pick up at least one poster paper and several markers. Then claim some space along the walls to begin designing your map. Any questions before we begin? Then let's do this. Concept map. You're now going to have an opportunity to see what other groups created. These 10 minutes are a chance to both review other groups' concept maps and see if other groups have made connections that your group had yet to make. You'll have about 1 minute at each concept map. If you're someone who likes to provide feedback or ask questions during gallery walks, we have some post-its here for you to write on and stick to others' concept maps as you travel around the room.
Mommy, when you come up, can you help?
Before we return to our seats, I want to call out that this concept map activity as an activity to use with your students on a regular basis. You should strongly consider using part of the class before an end of unit assessment to have students develop a concept map of the concepts covered in the unit. Also, you could have students flesh out the concept map on a recurring basis at a few strategic moments during the unit or through a series of consecutive lesson syntheses. Incorporating more reflection opportunities like concept maps can often further clarify learning for students and create more aha moments. In our last 5 minutes together, let's reflect on what we've learned and how we're going to use it. For your reflection, please open up your pre-work backpack. Beneath your reflection on principles from earlier today, please create a space to respond to the following prompts. What was your biggest aha moment during this session? What questions do you still have about the structure of Summit Math Unit? Take about 3 minutes to jot your reflections into your backpack. Then we'll come back together and I'll ask a few of you to share your thoughts with the whole group. Thank you for your thoughtful reflection. We'll take a short break from here.